across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good morning. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company. Loads to discuss this Saturday morning. The digital ID cards debate continues. We've got a Conservative MP standing by. He is against them. What do you think? 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We'll also look into a story going around at the moment about a man who put a tweet, a meme in fact, out there. He retweeted it and was arrested. It was something he made his views clear on Hamas. He didn't like them. F Hamas is what it said, and it said if you want to criticise this country, to F off to another country. Now, perhaps not the most pleasant thing, but nonetheless, that's free speech, and he was arrested because of it. This comes as a doctor is not banned from medical practice for saying that Britain is controlled by Jews. Yes, really. Loads to discuss. I want to make sure you get your voice on the air. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute please. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring, all on 0344 499 1000. We're asking the question this morning, is Britain still a free country? What do you think? Let me know. 0344 499 1000. Plenty to discuss between now and 12:30. Stay with me here on Talk. Well, Darren Jones is the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister and one of the most annoying men in government. He has explained why digital IDs are needed. This is what Darren Jones had to say.
What is a digital ID? My name is Darren Jones. I'm the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister. Let me explain. A digital ID is an ID on your phone that just proves you are who you are. And when you apply for any new job in the UK already, you have to prove that you have the right to work here. With a digital right to work check, you can do it with your phone, as opposed to having to rummage around for a passport or a utility bill which your employer has to photocopy. It's free, it's not going to cost you anything, it makes life easier for you. Lots of other countries use government digital ID. Australia or Denmark or Estonia, other places in Europe, as it means that we can hone in on those dodgy employers employing people illegally much more effectively, so that for the rest of us that get up every morning and go to work legally, we know that we're all doing the right thing and the system works well.
We're doing the right thing and the system works well. Daza there with his funky soundtrack. Well, Keir Starmer sounded a little bit more serious, perhaps even too serious, when he announced this. This is what he said yesterday.
This government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that.
Well, the leader of Reform UK wasn't too happy. This is what Nigel Farage had to say.
All that digital ID will be is a means of controlling the population, of telling us what we can and can't do, of fining the innocent. And didn't we see it all when we had the pandemic, when you had to have vaccine ID to travel, to do various things? Did that stop the COVID pandemic spreading? Did it hell? All it did was put cost and inconvenience on everybody else. I also worry about massive data banks being held by the government, being hacked by foreign governments, by private companies, by criminals. I do not see a single benefit to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do, what we spend and where we go. And we in Reform are wholly opposed to it in every single way.
Well, we've had the government's view, Labour's view, we've had Reform UK's view. Let's get the Conservative view. James Wilde is with me now. He's the Shadow Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury. James, good morning.
Morning, Peter.
Digital IDs, will you be carrying one?
No, we don't support making this mandatory. I think Darren Jones's video was completely tone deaf. We've seen 1.6 million people sign a petition in the hours after the Prime Minister made this pretty desperate announcement. He said it's about tackling illegal migration, but employers already have to check someone's identity. We don't support make it mandatory to do this in a digital format. You want to build trust and confidence in these services and get people to adopt them and choose to adopt them if they want to. If they prefer to use traditional methods, then they should be able to do that.
It's interesting in terms of what the government says will happen. It says it can get migration under control. Have you seen any evidence of that?
Well, no, quite the opposite, isn't it? We've seen, I think, 11,000 people have arrived since they introduced their 17 in, 1 out deal with France. There's 30,000 plus this year have arrived already. So they're failing to stop the boat, smash the gangs, because they got rid of the deterrent scheme that was there. So this is just a kind of desperate tactic to try and draw attention away from the scandal around the Prime Minister and his Chief of Staff over donations that weren't properly declared. And it comes off the back of, obviously, the Peter Mandelson scandal and the resignation of Angela Rayner.
In the Conservative Party, you know quite a lot about scandals too. The Electoral Commission, in regard to Morgan McSweeney, says there's nothing to see here.
Well, we've revealed some exchanges between him and his lawyer where they cooked up this excuse about an administrative error. The Commission said they're not going to reopen that. We're disappointed by that, but obviously we've also asked the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner to look at this because the Prime Minister failed to declare any benefit in kind that he got from Labour Together, who were boasting openly about supporting his campaign.
That may well be something that the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner needs to look into, but do you think people are actually listening to you at the moment? Another poll, you can't just say it's one poll, there have been 70 since Christmas, there have been 100 since the election that put you in 3rd or even 4th place. The fact is that, looking at the most recent poll, the Conservatives could go down to 45 seats. People are not listening to your message, James Wilde.
Well, look, we're working hard to win back the trust of the British people. It's just over a year since we lost an election badly because of some of the decisions we've made in government. But we're the only people who are being serious about the economy and the challenges that we face, and we need to live within our means. We've seen a government that's come in, whacked up taxes. It's about to whack them up again in the budget next month. We've got them reform. Other parties want to spend more on welfare. They want to get rid of the 2-child cap, which would cost £3.5 billion a year. We're the only ones who are being serious about the economic challenges that we face, and we need to get spending under control. So we've got to keep making the arguments. Those polls, we would rather be higher in the polls. We didn't expect to be a sudden turnaround just because it's a year after the election. We've got to win people's trust, and we've got our conference coming up soon where we'll be making announcements and setting out more of our plans about how we would change the country and improve people's lives.
James, there's a story around this morning about Pete North, who is an activist. He's been arrested on a couple of occasions, but was arrested simply for retweeting something which said F Hamas. There were a couple of other not particularly nice sentiments in there, but nothing, I think, that is illegal. Let's just see a little bit of the footage of the arrest of Pete North.
Basically, our hate crime team reviewed it and said there are offences there we need to explore.
Okay.
Basically, Section 19 refers to spreading what we say like racial hatred. So you've posted something online that we believe is spreading racial hatred.
Twitter, Facebook?
I can't explain too much. Obviously, if you've got stuff you'd like to gather, obviously I'm more than willing to talk through what you're able to take with you.
What, you're taking me away now?
Yes, so you're under arrest, so you're going to Harrogate, unfortunately.
You're taking me to Harrogate in the middle of the night over a tweet?
I am, unfortunately.
So that was a police officer explaining to Pete North why he was being arrested. Now, what he retweeted, which quite a number of other people retweeted as well, it's not a particularly nice thing, but we're going to put it on screen with a few bits blurred out. But nonetheless, this is what he retweeted. F Palestine, F Hamas, F Islam, want to protest, F off to a Muslim country and protest. Now, James Wilde, I think this is on the background, I should say, of a Palestinian flag. Now, James Wilde, I think we can probably agree it's not the nicest thing that anyone has ever tweeted, but should someone be arrested for tweeting that?
Well, Hamas is a prescribed terrorist organisation, so I'm concerned about that and that video and the policeman apologising. I mean, I think your viewers, my constituents, would want to see the police actually arresting shoplifters and other criminals rather than policing people's tweets. I don't think that would justify the action that we've seen on that video, and it is concerning. It comes off the back of a few other incidents where people have also been arrested for saying things. There's a right to offend people, and if it crosses the line, and obviously action does need to be taken. But I think the police need to get a bit of common sense here, really, rather than arresting people late at night and taking them from their homes.
It's not always that I praise the Health Secretary Wes Streeting, but he has condemned the fact that a doctor has not been censored by the General Medical Council for tweets which includes Britain is totally occupied by a Jewish supremacy. Another one, this is on the 13th of July, Jews can deny it all they like, but at some point you'll have to accept that Jewish supremacy is what is murdering us, is the basis on which Israel, in inverted commas, was created and continued to exist. That's fine, apparently, according to the General Medical Council, but this isn't. This is two-tier justice in action, James.
Well, I think there also, the doctor made some tweets also about the October the 7th
That's right.
massacre, where over 1,000 people were murdered, people were raped in one of the most horrendous attacks on Jewish people that there has been in recent decades. I think the General Medical Council, I think there's still another investigation that is ongoing, but this is a situation where I would unusually agree with Wes Streeting on the action here that needs to be taken.
Yeah, he says he has no confidence in the medical regulation system, and he called Israelis worse. This doctor, I should say, the female doctor, called Israelis worse than Nazis. We'll come back to that story a bit later in the programme. I just want to ask you a couple more things. One is about Britain signing an ambitious migration deal with the EU. That's what Rachel Reeves says needs to happen, that allows young Europeans to live and work here. She said it would bolster economic growth and reduce the need for tax rises in the budget. Is this desperate stuff from Rachel Reeves? She is saying the growth is needed. Of course, we know recently there's been 0% growth.
Well, indeed, and back in May, the Prime Minister was touting this great reset he'd had with the EU. None of the stuff that he said would happen, getting rid of some of the checks that the EU insisted on, having more security cooperation, none of that has been implemented. So there's nothing for the OBR to score. Rachel Reeves is desperately scrabbling around to try and get the numbers to add up, because she's going to have to raise taxes again a year after failing to grow the economy, because she hiked taxes on business. Unemployment's gone up month after month. We don't need more people coming into the country to work. We've got unemployment going up in this country.
Tell me how you would reply to Simon in Essex, who has sent us a text 87222 with the word talking a sex, saying, "Morning Pete, please ask that Tory guy," that's you James, "how much will digital ID cost and what happens if no one takes it up?" Well, we've been told it'll be free at the point of use, but that is a good point to ask. What happens if no one takes it up? What happens if people say they're not going to take up digital ID? There could be criminal sanctions, couldn't there?
Well, if you make it mandatory, you have to have a sanction. Otherwise, how would you enforce it? So, yeah, I think we know from government IT schemes that they tend not to be massively successful. I think even Darren Jones was saying that yesterday as he was touting this great scheme. So there's also security concerns. We've seen the hacks at M&S, Jaguar Land Rover, a nursery chain. There's all these things going on. So people are rightly concerned about the security of their data, and this would change the relationship between the citizen and the state. That's why I think making it mandatory is a bad idea. You should encourage people to adopt technology if it's going to make their life easier, then give them the option to do it. It's kind of like people prefer to use cash rather than cards in some places. We wouldn't mandate the use of cards just because it's simpler for some businesses to not be able to do that. We're protecting the use of cash. I think the government's wrong on this. We've seen a strong reaction already from so many people, and again, this is a rushed announcement. They haven't even got most of the detail out there. There's no legislation that would have to be introduced. This is some way off.
Do you think it's a dead cat? Do you think they're simply putting out this policy to distract from other problems they're having with Andy Burnham, with the Electoral Commission and other things? Because your view anyway is this hasn't been properly thought out.
Well, that's what it has. We've got a very short press release. If you're doing something like introducing effectively digital ID cards, that is a major change. That's a major policy announcement. You'd expect to have the white papers and all the documents ready to go with it in the legislation. What have we got? We've got a thin press release just the day or 2 days before the Labour Party conference, where, as you say, Andy Burnham's agitating to come back and take over from Keir Starmer, who's floundering her away. And the big issue is the economy, where Labour have failed. Unemployment's going up, growth is going down, taxes are going up, borrowing is going up, and they can't get a grip of spending. Their backbenchers are refusing to make savings to the welfare budget.
What about your conference in Manchester, James Wild? Surely there will be at least a few conversations about the future of Kemi Badenoch.
Well, I'm looking forward to the conference. I'm looking forward to Kemi speaking to the conference, but more importantly, speaking to the country and setting out her priorities and her philosophy. I think we've got the right values under her leadership about living within our means, taking responsibility.
She's not making an impact, though, is she?
Well, it's not going to happen overnight, but I think on the big issues...
It's going to happen sometime, hasn't happened so far.
Well, we keep pursuing it, Peter. It's not going to be overnight change in our fortunes. We've got to get the right to have a hearing from the British people, and that's why we're talking about the issues that matter, about the economy, about spending, about the things that really impact on people. And we've led the opposition to this government while other parties have been absent from Parliament, and you've got the Liberal Democrats who are always cozying up to the government. It's the Conservatives who are leading the opposition to this government and its failing.
Really? I mean, surely it's Reform UK that's leading the opposition. They're much further ahead than you, and people are listening to them and responding to them.
Well, we'll see. They're offering some easy answers when the reality is you need to have serious solutions to the problems that we face. They're actually quite left-wing on the economy. They want to increase spending. They're promising some fantasy tax cuts, and we need to expose what they're selling is not going to change the fortunes of the country.
Okay, James Wilde, Shadow Exchequer Secretary, thank you very much indeed for joining me this morning on Talk. He's the Conservative MP for North West Norfolk. Let's take a call from Mick in Essex. Mick, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say? Hello, Mick, are you with us there?
Oh, Peter, yes.
Hello, what would you like to say?
Hello. All I want to say is that these ID cards, if they come out within 2 hours, they will be copied by the gangs.
You're absolutely right.
So what's the point?
You're absolutely right.
All the migrants coming over on the channel will have one.
Yeah, well,
so what's the point?
Well, Mick, I think you're right, and the fact is that if you're saying to people you've got to have one, you've got to have one in your on your phone. I mean, a lot of people don't have smartphones. A lot of people don't have access to the internet. For example, over 2 million people.
All they got to do is delete it.
Yeah, well, listen, it's a very fair point, Mick. Thank you for that. Good point there. First call of the day. Thanks to Gary and Barnes as well. He says Darren Jones is a duplicitous rubbish merchant. Starmer spells it out every time he opens his mouth. He's a gullible fool. I wonder who filled Starmer's head last. This digital ID stuff is not free, as Jones says. We pay for it at every turn. He and Starmer are both beyond useless. Send Jones to Sweden on a gang-smashing experience tour. See the Daily Telegraph this morning, says Gary. I will have a look at that in a second. I've seen the front page, certainly. Joanna in Salisbury says, hi, Cardi P. When you are a British person, born and bred and told you can't have a job without digital ID, not just prove who you are, it is no longer a free country. Almost 1.7 million people have already signed a petition against it. That is correct. What are they going to do to us if we refuse? Cancel us, jail us, take our money and jobs away, says Joanna. Well, I will be asking Steve Reid tomorrow. He's the Housing Secretary. I'm going to say, what is the sanction here? Also, how are you going to give a Brit card to all those people in Northern Ireland who identify as Irish? Interesting question there. Is Britain still a free country is the question we're asking today. 0344 499 1000. We'll talk to Maxwell Marlowe and Shimian Lee on the debate desk. They've got opposing views on digital ID. We'll find out what they think and what you think after the break.
these digital IDs are illiberal, authoritarian, un-British, Orwellian and wrong. Which is why I have commissioned a pair of Talk's finest scissors to cut up this disgusting, wretched, evil, creepy, totalitarian document, because my message is very clear when it comes to digital ID. No, no, no.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Loads of people getting in touch about digital ID. Stephen Leicestershire says, we already have to give our national insurance number when we start work. That's our proof we're able to work in the UK. Leslie says, will government be providing smartphones to pensioners who don't have a phone, as it's of course free at the point of use? Let's hear what Ant has to say on a voice note.
Good morning, Cardi P. For when you get onto the subject of digital IDs, just a point I want to make is, if it is mandatory and you are to have it on your smartphone, which I don't know if that is going to be the case, then do you make owning smartphones mandatory, or are the government going to issue us with a digital device for this? Because you could say, look, I don't have a smartphone, I don't want one, or it's old, it needs updates, it won't work on it. You know, so do they make that mandatory? I just can't see how this is going to work. So, I mean, that's one of many issues over how this is going to work, let alone what it's going to pave the way to. Cheers, Peter.
And really, really good points there. And actually, it just got me thinking about, there's someone in my life who is perfectly intelligent, reasonable human being who isn't great with phones. I mean, if you said to this person, I'm going to give you £1 million to download an app, I'm not sure that person can actually do that. And that doesn't make them a stupid person. It doesn't make them someone who hasn't got a part to play. It doesn't make it someone who's not valuable to our society. It doesn't mean that person couldn't work if they wanted to. The point is that not everybody has a smartphone. Not everybody wants a digital ID. Not everybody will know how to use it. And not everyone will know how to use it responsibly and to make sure you don't give too much information away, which is something a lot of people are worried about. I want to go to the debate desk in just a second. Shimmy and Lee and Maxwell Marlowe are with us, but just one more voice note now from Hev.
Good morning, Peter. It's Hev from Kent. Yeah, if this digital ID is mandatory, I wonder if they'll offer those that don't have decent smartphones. You know, I've got a rubbish phone. I can't even download any more apps. I can only have about 2 or 3 on there. So, you know, maybe the government will be giving out iPhones to people. I mean, why not? You know, the migrants get me.
Hev, thanks for that. What is Hev short for? Is it like Heather? But it's like Hev or Hev. I just wonder. I feel Danny Dyer is in the studio. Maxwell Marlowe is not Danny Dyer. He is Director of Public Affairs at the Adam Smith Institute, and Shimmy and Lee is Policy Analyst at the Taxpayers Alliance. They're two wonks, but believe me, they do get outside London. They do know what they're talking about. Differing views, I think, on digital IDs. Maxwell?
I'm with the great and patriotic listeners and contributors to Talk.
Shameless, absolutely shameless.
I'm really against it. I think it's a terrible idea for so many reasons, which I'm sure we'll get into. But Shimian, you, on the other hand, are in favour, I believe. Do you want to give your sacrilege right on the top?
Tell us why. Be nice to him. Be nice to him. What do you think, Shimian?
Look, I think the implementation should be a lot slower, a lot smaller in scope, and there should be a physical option. I think people will be a lot more comfortable with that. But I think, in principle, a digital ID or a form of mandatory ID is necessary to tackle the problems that we face when it comes to illegal immigration.
Why?
Well, because
why specifically illegal immigration? How would it help? If people are here illegally, well, I mean, couldn't they obtain ID illegally as well?
Well, I think it comes down to a fundamental question. Do we want to know who is in this country or not? And I think it's common sense that we should have an idea of who are the people who are accessing public services, who are the people who are living and working in this country. And without a mandatory system, basically we can't tell who's here legally and who's here illegally. The problem is that if you're not required to carry to have a mandatory form of identification, then neither is someone who's here illegally. And without having some form of identification, we just aren't able to tell the difference between someone who is here legally and who isn't here legally.
But I mean, people say, look, you've got national insurance numbers, for example. If you have a job, you should have to give your national insurance number. That is the check essentially that they have in terms of right to work. And the problem is, many people argue, and I think they're right actually, is the mission creep aspect of this. The fact that this will come into many other aspects of our lives as well. That's inevitable, is it not?
Well, I 100% agree that the scope should be very, very tightly limited.
But the problem is the scope's always limited at the start and then it expands, isn't it?
Well, I think given the amount of opposition that this has faced, I'm sure that any attempts to expand it even further in a scenario where it's limited would come into contact with a lot of opposition from people. But I think the current system that we have in terms of right to work checks, that's the responsibility of the employer. And it's very difficult for HMRC or the Home Office or Border Force to actually check those, because currently what they do is, I believe, they have to retain some sort of proof that they've checked the right to work, but that can vary because there are lots of ways you can prove your right to work. And if you were a British citizen, I think just a passport would be enough. But having the Home Office basically communicate with all these companies and ask them to go through their records to dig up the sort of checks that they've performed, whether or not those checks were robust enough, and then investigating further to see whether the documents that someone might have provided to an employer are legitimate. That's a lot more complicated. That's a lot more difficult for people.
Why not just have it all in one place, Maxwell?
Well, that would be great. So let's say you're going to vote. New legislation, obviously, there are 14 different documents you can have to go in and vote. Do you honestly believe that the government will just move all of this into one app? A, they're not capable of doing so, and B, I don't think they want to, fundamentally. I'm sure...
well, they're also against voter ID. That's something
another
that Labour was against, yeah.
It's what may be, this immediately brings me back to the COVID app. Do you remember that?
I do.
Just total, failure of that. Do you remember Ping-gate and how you get pinged because someone upstairs from you? I think that there is so much area for this going on.
Through the wall of a flat.
Well, I actually have digital ID, I will say. I lost my driver's licence on a quite busy night out, and I haven't got my provisional driver's licence. So I downloaded an app called Yachty. It works fine, except when I try and buy alcohol in a pub because they don't recognise it, and some supermarkets don't recognise it. Is that going to change? I don't think so. And I'm really worried about the procurement programme for this. They're going to flush loads of money into this. They said it will be available by the end of this Parliament. So that's 4 years, essentially, of procuring this. It's going to be incredibly expensive. And my digital ID company didn't accidentally email the Taliban with all of the lists of people who want to come out of the country twice. I just don't trust the government on this, and I think your listeners are absolutely right not to either.
It's also the question of what happens if your phone is stolen, which I haven't got an answer to.
Exactly.
And I'm going to ask Steve Reid tomorrow, so tune in tomorrow between 10 and 1, because Steve Reid, the Housing Secretary for the government, will be with us. We'll ask him all these questions. If there's other things you want me to ask him, just send them through now. We're getting a list together. Let's speak to Chris in Surrey, who's very concerned about digital IDs. Chris, you're on the line not just with me, but with Maxwell and Simeon as well. What would you like to say this morning? You're very welcome to the programme.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning and great show.
Thank you.
I don't need to work anymore. I'm 72 now. Does that mean I won't need an ID, digital ID?
I think for the moment it does. I mean, Keir Starmer has said that you won't be able to work without one, but the problem is that it will extend to other things, Chris. It will go into lots of other aspects. And the thing I'm worried about, maybe Simeon could give us his thoughts on this. You're saying it should be limited, and I totally accept that. But what's to say that all the data together that the government has won't eventually be on this?
Well, I think under the current plans, I think because this whole thing comes from a proposal from the Tony Blair Institute, under those plans, the sort of information would remain with the individual departments. So there wouldn't be some sort of central database with everybody's information. But I take your point that it is possible that happens. But I think it's possible for the government to abuse your data now. For example, what's stopping the government from, misusing NHS data or something like that? Yeah. I think the risk of that is just the same. It's basically the same.
And as Maxwell says, they emailed the Taliban twice under the Conservatives and Labour. Chris, what are your concerns about this? If someone says to you, right, to access NHS services, you've got to have some form of digital ID, what would you actually do, Chris?
I'll just jump on a dinghy, Peter, and sail across to France.
Yeah, I mean...
It's pathetic, mate. I mean, you know, this is Starmer, right? I have a simple philosophy with regards to Starmer. If he's for it, I'm against it. I will refuse to have one. I will refuse to show it. If it means I get rid of my phone, I'll get rid of it. I will not sign up to this.
Chris, thanks for your thoughts. That's Chris and Surrey. There is a clear resistance to this, isn't there? We've seen the survey. Actually, can we just check what the survey is on now? I think it's about 1.6 million. It's a petition on the House of Commons website to talk about this in Parliament. I think it's about 1.6 million, but the top team behind the glass will find me the exact total and I'll give it to you after the break. 1.6 million. It is 1.6 million. So, I mean, there's a sizable minority of people who just don't want this and are not going to do it.
Do you think, I'm going to pose an interesting question. Is this not a dead cat? Do you think they've just kind of thrown on the table here? Because this government's in meltdown at the moment. Just 2 days ago, the Director of Communications from Number 10 resigns. I think it's the 6th person to resign from that position, or however many people.
There have been a number of communications chiefs who have resigned.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not quite,
it's not quite
precise, but there have been a number of communication chiefs who've gone.
But nonetheless, this is creating a lot of noise. It's not going to come in for a very long time. I'm against this. With the Online Safety Act as well, not much noise was made, but this is a huge thing. What's the government hiding here? I mean, I know they're about to go into conference. My suitcase is in the hall outside. I'm heading up as well.
I'm sure they can't wait to see you.
They're going to love me so much. It'll be fantastic. But the problem is that yes, we'll have opposition to this, and then it will slide slowly into the background as other parliamentary business continues. So,
do you think this is a distraction technique, Simeon, from your reading of this?
I think there's a high chance that factored into their considerations. But I think the dysfunction in government now really pours a lot of cold water on the idea that we're going to have some sort of dystopian 1984-style Big Brother government. I mean, this is a government that can't even pass, its own legislation, despite having a massive majority. This is a government that has seen a revolving door in terms of its ministers. I don't think this government has the capacity to sort of go into people's data and abuse it. I think it's far more likely that incompetence is a problem here, whether or not they're actually able to deliver on what they promise, whether or not it will actually be secure. If you look at the sort of data breaches, the Taliban data breach, the sort of Afghanistan data breach, I think the real question here is whether or not they're capable of doing it, rather than whether or not they have some sort of malicious intent.
Can I also just say, the government currently has 40 different HR systems in Whitehall. None of its financial infrastructure is linked up. Teams can't talk to each other within their own department. How do you think they're going to create the infrastructure in order to bring all of our data together at this point? Yeah. It verges on the impossible. It's insane.
It's a very, very good point. It's absolutely something that our viewers and listeners want to talk about. Molly says, what happens when your phone gets stolen? Like the thousands of phones that are stolen every year. Rich says, dusted off my box of old dumb and BlackBerry secure phones. Make sure everyone gets a hard SIM copy of your eSIM. And another person, Brad in Cambridge, says, Starmer is deluded. Employers and landlords are already supposed to ask for national insurance numbers. Yeah, they still employ illegal immigrants in huge numbers. It's no coincidence Starmer said that he admits he got migration wrong, which was obviously just a ploy to introduce the digital ID, says Brad in Cambridge. Loads more to come on this. Lots of other stories to talk about as well. The man who criticised Hamas online and was arrested for it. We will look into that as well. Also, the UK population growing by 750,000 in a year, the equivalent of a size of Leeds. Unsurprisingly, our public services are under pressure. Loads to discuss. I want to get your voice on the air. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, just to say, tomorrow is going to be a bumper show. We've managed to get all 4 of the main parties involved. We've got the Housing Secretary, Steve Reid, is going to be on the show. We're also going to have the Shadow Deputy Prime Minister, James Cleverly, will be with us, Reform's Alex Wilson, and Christine Jardine from the Liberal Democrats. So they're all here. It's a conference season. In fact, Maxwell's off to Labour, Shimion's off to the Conservatives. I'm heading off to the Conservatives as well, just for a day or so. So there's a lot to discuss politically. If you've questions for any of those politicians you think I should ask, text them in 87222. Kimberly has some questions for Shimion, not just can you please stop clicking your pen. That's one of the questions. But Kimberly's given us a ring on 0344 499 1000. Kimberly, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Firstly, I'm with you. I would ban clicky pens, but
yep,
that's another
definitely
story.
ban clicky pens. We're not going to ban Shimion, but we are going to ban clicky pens. Shimion, Lee and Maxwell Marley are with us, but I think you have some questions for Shimion, is that right?
Yeah, regarding these ID cards. This is a genuine question here. In practice, let's imagine a small boat's turning up and these guys get off. In practice, where do these ID cards come into it? Because they're not going to have them on them. They're not going to be dishing them out in Calais, are they? So when they get here, how do these digital cards practically work out? Are they going to get given one? In which case, do they have to give their information? So are we going to trust them? If we don't want any murderers coming to the country, are we going to know they're going to say, oh, by the way, I'm a murderer? In reality, how is it going to work?
I mean, I don't know the answer to that question. It's also the question is, if you don't have digital ID, if you go into a hospital and you're bleeding and you don't have a digital ID, do they say, sorry, you're not entitled to those services? I mean, there are loads of questions, aren't there, Shimion?
So I think the point of a mandatory ID card is so that the people who are here legally will have an ID card. So if you don't have an ID card, then the conclusion is that you are here illegally. So the fact that these people coming over on small boats don't have an ID card will help us identify who these people are and where they are in society. So let's say, this is obviously not the government's current plan, but let's say you needed an ID card before in order to access NHS services, for example. People who are here legally would be able to produce their ID card, and that would be recorded in the system. And people who seek medical care but aren't able to present an ID card, the conclusion would be that they are here illegally.
But show me the nurse or the doctor who's going to say, I'm terribly sorry, you're having a heart attack, but you don't have a digital ID, we're not going to treat you.
Well, I think it's possible to treat them and then keep the record of these people who do not have an ID card. So, for example, if somebody comes in, we treat them, and then we say, why do you not have an ID card? And then the police can follow up on that investigation after treatment has been done.
And I'm not holding you responsible for government policy, Shimion, but to Kimberly's question about immigration, how does it actually solve immigration? How does it help? So these people don't have digital IDs, so therefore if they want to access services, then we know who they are and we can get them out of our country. Is that the general answer?
I think there's no single silver bullet to solving immigration. So things like leaving the ECHR, for example, which has been touted by some political parties as a solution, that by itself won't solve the problem. And just the same, not having a digital ID system, for example, will not solve the problem. But not having a digital ID system, rather, will make it a lot more difficult to solve the problem. Because if we can't even identify the people who are here illegally, what hope do we have of actually removing these people? I mean, I think the very first step to remove someone is to have an idea of who they are.
So we identify them by default, essentially. Kimberly, does that answer your question?
No, I'm afraid it doesn't. It still doesn't. When these guys arrive on a boat, how are we going to give them a digital ID card when we're relying on them? Are we relying on them to tell us who they are? And let's say they haven't got one, which we know they haven't, because they're supposed to have passports, but they don't. They're supposed to have national insurance cards, and they don't.
Well, Kimberly, do you know what? I'm going to ask Steve Reid about this tomorrow. If you tune in tomorrow, he is the Housing Secretary. I'm going to ask him about this and say, do these people get an ID card? If you're an asylum seeker, do you get an ID card? What actually happens? Quick final thought from Maxwell on this.
Illegal immigration is a huge issue around the world. Most other countries have mandatory ID. Does that stop them from working?
No, it doesn't.
So,
no, it doesn't. There are many. Germany has mandatory ID and has a huge problem with migration. Kimberly, thanks for your thoughts there. I promise you. The producer, Chris, is making a note of all of these points, and we will get through as many of them as we can with the government, with the opposition tomorrow. We'll talk about all of this. But Kimberly, thanks for your points there. I want to move on because, of course, we'll talk about digital IDs as much as you want to throughout this programme. If you have further points and want to add points, 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. But I want to talk about something that's really quite disturbing now. A guy called Pete North, who is someone who has made his views politically clear on a number of occasions. On this particular point about Hamas, I just want to show you, and I'll read out to you if you're listening, what he tweeted. This was a meme about Hamas, which, let's remember, is a prescribed terrorist organisation. Let's just get it up on the screen now, if we can, specifically the meme that he was sending. Now, we've blurred out the F word, which appears 4 times. It's on a Palestinian flag. He says, F Palestine, F Hamas, F Islam, want to protest, F off to a Muslim country and protest. Now, that's not something that I would retweet, I must say. However, to retweet it is free speech. Well, he was arrested. Let's see some footage of Pete North being arrested for this.
Basically, our hate crime team reviewed it and said there are offences there we need to explore.
Okay.
Basically, Section 19 refers to spreading what we say like racial hatred. So you've posted something online that we believe is spreading racial hatred.
Twitter, Facebook,
I can't explain too much. Obviously, if you've got stuff you'd like to gather, obviously I'm more than willing to talk through what you're able to take with you.
What, you're taking me away now?
Yes, so you're under arrest, so you're going to Harrogate, unfortunately.
You're taking me to Harrogate in the middle of the night over a tweet?
I am, unfortunately.
It wasn't quite in the middle of the night, it was at 10 o'clock at night. Still not very nice as a time to be arrested. Not that there's ever a nice time to be arrested. Maxwell, your thoughts on this?
So, I've actually kept an eye on what North Variant is his Twitter handle, has been saying about this. Bear in mind, Harrogate's an hour away from where he lives, so drove him right through the night to be arrested. And he makes a really good point about this. Obviously, this is a terrible thing. He's also disabled. He's got autism and Tourette's, and it's been very unfortunate for him and his wife or girlfriend. The big thing for this, though, is that the hate crime team didn't actually know that Hamas was a prescribed terrorist organisation. He had to explain this to them in the interview room, and these 2 police officers went, "Oh, we didn't know that. Really sorry." And another point he makes is about Islam. Is it is that a protected characteristic? Not too sure.
Well, we don't have a blasphemy law in this country at the moment.
Well, I mean, yeah,
there are some MPs anyway who'd like to introduce one, but to criticise Islam, even to say F to Islam or F Christianity or F Judaism or whatever, that's unpleasant, but it's not illegal.
Absolutely, and this is another case, the Quran burning case, for example, where a man was basically burning a Quran outside the Turkish embassy, someone came at him with a knife. That case has been thrown out of court. Oh, so he's been in prison for a year now. He's been sentenced to a year in prison. What on earth is going on? Because I thought we were a free country, right? You should be able to criticise religion, especially to criticise prescribed terrorist organisations, and not have the police turn up. This is just Britain going more and more down a slippery slope. It's really scary.
Shivian?
I think on that Quran burning incident, the person that actually threatened him with a knife, I think he got a suspended sentence, so he didn't even go to jail. So I think this story in particular is kind of shocking. One of the reasons I think that is because he got arrested, not just for, it wasn't even his post, he merely shared the post. I mean, what's next? People be arrested for liking posts even.
Well, there are lots of people who have shared the post who aren't him, for example, and they haven't been arrested. Not that they should be, but clearly this is selective, and because a complaint is made, and anybody can make a complaint about anybody, and can do so anonymously.
I think it's a symptom of the policing system gone mad. It's simply not fit for purpose. It's not meant for police to be investigating these crimes in the first place. I think, frankly, it's an example of how the government doesn't really need something like digital ID even to start persecuting people. And it's always the people who follow the rules, who have their ID, who interact with police, that get targeted for these things. I think the people who don't cooperate, there should be some consequences for them.
Well, I also want to talk about Wes Streeting. Now, it's not always that I praise Wes Streeting, but I'm going to. He says he has no faith in the medical regulator after an NHS doctor who allegedly denied the Holocaust has been allowed to keep her job. This is Dr. Rami Aladwan, a trauma and orthopaedics doctor, I certainly wouldn't want her treating me, who allegedly refused to condemn the October the 7th attacks, describing 2 Palestinian gunmen as martyrs, also talked about Jewish supremacy and the fact that the UK is controlled by Jews. Now, the General Medical Council and the Medical Practitioners Tribunal Service ruled on Thursday she would remain free to practice during the investigation after concluding her post did not amount to bullying or harassment. Maxwell?
The GMC is just not fit for purpose as an organisation. Shim and I work in think tanks, we look at this stuff quite a lot. There are so many examples of this, and in fact, to quote Dr. Chris Snowdon from the Institute of Economic Affairs, he says the entire medical profession is needs investigating, because this happens all the time. I was saying to Shimon before the show, there was a story very recently of one doctor who amputated his own legs out of a fetish, and the only reason he got locked up was because he tried to defraud two insurance companies out of it. But there are so many examples of this going through, going through history. And the NHS always seems to come in and try and cover this sort of stuff up. There was another case recently at Blackpool Hospital. Numerous members of staff sent to jail for various problems. The NHS tried to cover it up. Again and again, the government tries to cover up these sorts of things. Now, I'm glad West Streeting is on board with our thinking that the GMC is just not fit for purpose.
I think it's specifically the Medical Practitioners Tribunal Service in this particular instance, but there have been Twitter tweets about Dr. Al-Adwan, 35,000 followers, described anti-Semitism and the Holocaust as concepts used by Jewish people to promote the narrative of victimhood. Another post says, I will never condemn the 7th of October, denying rapes took place. I mean, factually, they did. That is a fact. And I mean, there are many other aspects here, including 2 Palestinian gunmen, terrorists, who stormed a bus in Jerusalem, killing 6 people, injuring 11. I was actually in Israel when this happened, including a pregnant woman, as Palestinian martyrs. Shimon.
Well, I think there is an issue of professional groups sort of closing ranks and defending their own. I think even if there was some sort of disciplinary action taken, there would be all sorts of legal challenges. I'm sure the unions would start to get involved. So I think it's a whole infrastructure that is rewarding bad behaviour and preventing us from actually taking action on some of these issues.
Thank you both. Just one text before the break. Cliff in Berkshire says, Pete North was a bit daft tweeting what he did given the current political climate, but I would defend his right to do so. It's interesting given what the arresting officer said, that that Islam is a race. I thought it was a religion, says Cliff in Berkshire. The point is that I wouldn't retweet that. I don't think it's a nice thing, but nonetheless, should it be illegal? And is Britain still a free country when we don't have free speech, when people are arrested for retweets? This is what this country is coming to. We're going to stay on the debate desk with Maxwell and with Shimian. Let us know your thoughts on all of this. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, the population of the UK has grown by 750,000 in a year. This is the equivalent to a size of a city the size of Leeds. These are figures that have come out. I just wonder what you think about this, Simeon.
Well, I think too often we talk about GDP and we don't talk enough about GDP per capita, and that of course will depend on population. If you grow the population massively, and these are not high-skilled people who contribute to the economy, then you'll see, even if GDP goes up, GDP per capita will actually fall. I think the picture on GDP per capita is a lot more mixed. Just last year we had a personal recession. That's GDP per capita falling for 2
So the amount of money
quarters.
each person produces for the economy, essentially.
Absolutely. So we see that actually falling last year for 2 quarters. That's what we call at the Taxpayers Alliance a personal recession. And we think that during a personal recession, government should be cutting back on the amount that it spends. We think that there should be things like automatic freezes for public sector workers, automatic benefits should increase automatically if there is a personal recession. So I think that has a real impact.
The Labour government's done the opposite, Simeon. They've given huge increases to many public sector workers.
Absolutely. I think that there's not enough attention paid to this metric of GDP per capita, which is much more important than GDP, especially when it comes to the life of everyday people.
Well, the life of everyday people, as you say, and we can see so many people struggling to get school places, struggling to get housing. For example, we've got the Housing Secretary on the show tomorrow. Maxwell, what do you make of these figures?
I think it's all very well and good. I mean, I agree with Simeon entirely, talking about numbers on a spreadsheet. The Treasury think that the more people you put into the economy, the more growth goes up, which is just demonstrably false. My concern is about the culture, which you can't measure on spreadsheets. How are people feeling walking down the street? You know, we all live in London, for example. How much London has changed, and I don't think for the better over the last few years. And, you know, a city the size of Leeds...
It's all fine, says Sir Sadiq.
Oh, fantastic. I'm sure we'll have a great time with the next election, given how things have been going. But a city the size of Leeds coming in, what's a culture going to do there? I've just come back from a conference in Portugal, and people were like openly discussing this and saying we need an integration model, blah, blah, blah. We can't do that at this point. We're just we're stuffing the country full of people who, you know, maybe arriving on small boats, but also arriving legally to fill up job vacancies that Brits should be doing. I just don't get where this is coming from.
It's a very fair point. Digital ID is another big issue which is related to all of this. James in Staffordshire's given me a ring, 0344 499 1000. James, you're on with me, but also with Maxwell and Simeon. What would you like to say this morning? You're very welcome.
Good morning, chaps. Excellent show, if you don't mind me saying so.
We certainly don't mind you saying that, James.
I've got to be honest, I think this is the longest suicide note in history by Labour. And people say, is this the poll tax moment? I think there's been so many poll tax moments now. Pick any one and they are lost.
Why do you think they're doing it, James? What do you think their reasoning is? They say they want to get illegal immigration under control.
Well, they're applying ideology before practicality. Here are a bunch of people with ambition way beyond ability.
I can't believe you would say that about Darren Jones. James, hold your thoughts. Hold your thoughts just for a second there. I'll get a view from Maxwell and Simeon, and then I promise you I'll come back to you, James. Maxwell first.
I'm actually in agreement. This could be the longest suicide note in history. It's just going to go down so poorly. And when it doesn't work, and you're going to have more protests on the streets about this, no doubt about that.
Do you think there'll be protests on the streets?
I think there could be. You know, the longer this goes on. We saw the Unite the Kingdom rally. People do not want to be surveilled. It's a basic English freedom.
Well, I think they've come to this policy by method of elimination, essentially. So they've looked at illegal immigration and they've eliminated so many options for themselves. They've ruled out leaving the ECHR, they've cancelled the Conservatives' Rwanda scheme, they have this half-baked one-in, one-out scheme. So by process of elimination, there's not much left they can do except for something like this, to introduce mandatory IDs, which I think they think will help, at least it will help identify the people. Whether or not those people will actually be removed, that's another question entirely. But, you know, I think that's a step towards it, but they've arrived by that essentially by process of elimination.
James, what do you think of what you just heard there?
I couldn't agree more. And the other thing with Labour is they appear to have the mentality that anybody from the third world is obviously a victim who needs every assistance, every level. Keep your culture that thinks it's okay to treat women as third and fourth class citizens. And yet anybody who is, shall we say, indigenous to this country is treated with contempt. You look at the military people who are homeless, this, that and the other. Are they offered the same level of comfort? No. and they can't get it through their heads that we have been saying for years we don't want it.
Yeah, and they're just not listening.
And lastly, Peter, if you don't mind,
go ahead. Yeah.
I work in the IT industry. I'm an IT consultant. And don't forget, the world's most expensive app was produced by Boris Johnson over the COVID app and this and the other. And the chances of getting all of the relational databases talking together are absolutely nil. Then who would administer it? Where would you get the power from for it? Where would it be centred? It's a dead cat.
James, thank you for that. I'd love to chat to you again on another occasion, and not just when I need my printer fixed. Thanks very much for your call. I really appreciate this. James in Staffordshire. They're both lads here, Maxwell and Simeon, are heading off to political conferences. It's going to be a really big couple of weeks. What's at stake at Labour, do you think, very briefly?
Yeah, sure. So very quickly, my own little story here is my brother has just bought a house. He's younger than me. This is terrible. But his girlfriend who's bought it with works for the Liverpool Police Service, and she has texted me saying you need to be really careful outside of this conference.
Wow.
She's on arrest duty, so she's being sent up just to arrest protesters who will be there carrying the I Support Palestine Action placards, etc. Other stories there, it's going to be complete carnage. I don't actually expect to see many MPs. I think they're going to be advised to stay in their rooms because a few beers in and they're going to start briefing quite heavily, so it's goldmine for journalists.
From the Conservative side as well, Simeon, you're heading up there. What do you expect? What pressure do you think Kemi Badenoch's going to be under?
Well, I think the Conservative Party really have to sort of seize the momentum, seize the initiative, because I think Labour has shown itself to be quite weak, but I don't think the Conservatives are really taking advantage of that. I think Reform has been far more effective at sort of getting their policy positions out there. I think the Conservatives have been very, very sort of tepid, and it's just not very clear what their sort of agenda is. I think the conference will be an opportunity for them to get their house in order.
An opportunity, but presumably a risk as well for Kemi Badenoch.
I think that there's still the jury's still out on Kemi Badenoch. I think she's only been
out for a long time, Simeon, hasn't it?
I think it's unlikely that Conservatives will be looking to oust her that quickly just because of internal dynamics. Okay. It's only been a year. That's a bad precedent, I think.
I think we need to wait until after the local elections for both leaders to perhaps have a few questions asked about them. I don't think Andy Burnham is going to be leader of the Labour Party and Prime Minister anytime soon. He lost to Ed Miliband, the bacon sandwich wielding assassin. Maxwell Marlowe and Simeon Lee, thank you both very much for being on the debate desk. More debate next here on Talk. Stay with us.
Your Majesty, Melania and I are deeply grateful to you and Queen Camilla for your extraordinary graciousness. And to William and Kate, thank you so much. It's been so great being with you today. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's a singular privilege to be the first American president welcomed here. The phrase special relationship, seen from American eyes, the word special does not begin to do it justice. We're joined by history and fate, and by love and language. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be with you.
Security remains the cornerstone of this special relationship. We have the deepest, most advanced defense relationship in the world.
As I said last night, the bond between our countries is like no other anywhere in the world. The United States and the United Kingdom have done more good on this planet than any two nations in human history.
We are working together to end the humanitarian catastrophe in the Middle East.
The one that I thought would be easiest would be because of my relationship with President Putin, but he's let me down.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is Britain still a free country? That's the question we're asking this morning here on Talk. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Loads on digital ID. This is something for a third day now you want to talk about. And this is my show, but it's your show too. And if you want to talk about it, you let me know and we'll talk about it. Ruth Ehrlich is standing by. She's head of policy and campaigns at Liberty. Loads of questions. Students and pensioners not seeking work will have an optional digital ID, apparently. Alternative routes and assistance will be available for those who cannot use a smartphone. We've been looking into other countries as well. Denmark, students can use their national digital ID to log in and automatically retrieve education records and qualifications in jobs and university applications. Could that happen here too? Loads of questions. We're also talking about the man who was arrested for retweeting something about Hamas. He said F Hamas. Now that's not necessarily a nice thing, but it's a sentiment many of us may well have. I've certainly had it from time to time, not that I've tweeted it, but he was arrested as a result of that. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the view from America before the end of the programme and get as many calls, texts, tweets, voice notes. You know, on this show, on all of my shows, it's all about you. I get as many messages on air as possible. We'll get more of those in just a second and see what the politicians have been saying about this too. The ways to get on the air, straightforward. Pick up the phone. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me at 72222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a voice note. Less than a minute, please. We've had quite a few that are more than a minute. Less than a minute, please. Tech Up Dave goes through them, and it's so much easier and so much fairer for everybody if they're less than a minute. So please, less than a minute, so it doesn't become tetchy up Dave. 0344 499 1000 is the number to send your voice notes in on. You can also ring me on that number or send me a WhatsApp text message too. Loads of ways to communicate, loads of ways to get your point across. Let's do all of that between now and 12:30 here on Talk. Stay with us. Tomorrow as well, between 10 and 1, is going to be a politician-a-thon. If you have questions for the Housing Secretary, Steve Reid, if you have questions for the Shadow Deputy Prime Minister, James Cleverly, if you have questions for the Liberal Democrats, for Reform UK, you can send them in right now. We're keeping a note of them, and I'll get through as many of them as I can. You know the number, 0344 499 1000. On digital ID, it was announced by Keir Starmer yesterday. It's been trailed for a little while. Darren Jones is Keir Starmer's representative on Earth. He is Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister. This is the funky little video that he said it's all going to be fine and marvellous and beautiful and wonderful. This is what digital IDs will do and how they will work, according to Darren Jones.
What is a digital ID? My name is Darren Jones. I'm the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister. Let me explain. A digital ID is an ID on your phone that just proves you are who you are. And when you apply for any new job in the UK already, you have to prove that you have the right to work here. With a digital right to work check, you can do it with your phone, as opposed to having to rummage around for a passport or a utility bill which your employer has to photocopy. It's free, it's not going to cost you anything, it makes life easier for you. Lots of other countries use government digital ID. Australia or Denmark or Estonia, other places in Europe, as it means that we can hone in on those dodgy employers employing people illegally much more effectively, so that for the rest of us that get up every morning and go to work legally, we know that we're all doing the right thing and the system works well.
Hone in on the dodgy employers, do the right thing so the system works well. Really? Is that what's going to happen? Keir Starmer announced all of this in a slightly more serious fashion yesterday.
This government will make a new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that.
Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, says he is not too happy.
All that digital ID will be is a means of controlling the population, of telling us what we can and can't do, of fining the innocent, and didn't we see it all when we had the pandemic, when you had to have vaccine ID to travel, to do various things? Did that stop the COVID pandemic spreading? Did it help? All it did was put cost and inconvenience on everybody else. I also worry about massive data banks being held by the government, being hacked by foreign governments, by private companies, by criminals. I do not see a single benefit to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do, what we spend and where we go. And we in Reform are wholly opposed to it in every single way.
Well, 1,715,743 people have signed a petition against this. This is something that Clifton Berkshire has noticed. He says, this morning I looked at the petition against the introduction of digital IDs. I was surprised at the sheer speed the number of signatories was increasing as I watched. Well, that and other points on digital ID I put to James Wilde, the Shadow Exchequer Secretary, Shadow Treasury Minister. He is for the Conservatives. I spoke to him about an hour ago. This is what he said.
No, we don't support making this mandatory. I think Darren Jones's video was completely tone deaf. We've seen 1.6 million people sign a petition in the hours after the Prime Minister made this pretty desperate announcement. He said it's about tackling illegal migration, but employers already have to check someone's identity. We don't support making it mandatory to do this in a digital format. You want to build trust and confidence in these services and get people to adopt them and choose to adopt them if they want to. If they prefer to use traditional methods, then they should be able to do that.
James Wilde there for the Conservatives. Well, Ruth Ehrlich is Head of Policy and Campaigns at Liberty. Ruth, do you think our liberty will be expanded by digital IDs?
I think that we share some of the healthy scepticism of what the government is proposing to roll out as a compulsory ID card system. And I think that's reflected in lots of the voices we've just heard from and from the people who are signing this petition. You know, we can look to other examples where the government has tried to introduce something that is proposed as a digital solution, and actually it doesn't solve those problems at all. And I think the government does have to be really frank about what it's doing here, which is introducing something that will be forced upon everyone and isn't going to achieve its aims of reducing irregular migration, but it does indeed introduce a whole host of risks to data security, to privacy, and to the way that we just operate in this country.
I think you're absolutely right in all of that. I do wonder what problems it can solve. The government says it'll help in regard to illegal immigration. Do you not think it can?
Well, I think there are two things here. Firstly, it's already unlawful for someone to employ someone who doesn't have the right to work. And if employers aren't checking people's ID, this is just introducing a new form of ID for employers not to check. I don't think it's going to solve that problem. But I think it's also important to look to other countries that have a digital ID system, a mandatory ID system. You know, you look to Estonia, that everyone has been pointing to this week, where there's a 99% take up on the digital ID system there. Its underground economy is larger than the underground economy in the UK. So what this proposes to do is, in fact, obviously push more people into hardship. It obviously puts at risk the more than 2 million people in the country who don't have access to the internet, who don't have a smartphone. But it also forces this system upon absolutely everyone in the UK.
It's interesting, actually, in terms of those 2 million people you mentioned who don't have a smartphone, don't have access to the internet at home. Students and pensioners, I'm not saying all those 2 million people fall into that category for a second, but with students and pensioners not seeking work, they will have an optional digital ID. I mean, what possible incentive would you have actually to take up that digital ID if you don't actually need it? The thing I worry about as well, Ruth, and I wonder what Liberty thinks is, and what you think, in regard to putting all the data together. And the government says this will be limited in the start, but what is often the case is that's not how these things happen. And you could actually argue, maybe you would, I don't know, that things like the COVID app, the NHS app are actually part of a sequence here.
Yeah, I think, you know, taking the first point on the kind of the optional uptake for people, I think when you introduce a complicated system like, first, you know, we're waiting to see all the details of the consultation, but when you introduce a complicated system like this, the more complicated it gets. If you look to the digital ID e-visas that already exist in this country for migrants, the system has been shambolic. You know, people having incorrect information uploaded to their system, people not being able to access the system, it crashing. So it's not like this is going to be a seamless change. And then to the second point of what this broad database might look like, I think you're absolutely right to flag the cybersecurity concerns. You know, if you look to kind of what the proposals are suggesting, it's going to be built on the one login database, which has been criticised by the government's own data security and cybersecurity watchdog. I think, you can also look to international examples, which we have been doing this week, but in India and Estonia, there have been serious data breaches where millions of people's personal data has been put at risk. So I don't look to the digital systems that successive governments have tried to introduce here and feel full of hope that this is going to be a very secure system.
Well, on that note, the question we're asking our viewers and listeners this morning, Ruth, is Britain still a free country? What do you think?
Look, I think if you look at the proposals, and again, we're waiting to see the full consultation, this is meant to be a narrow intervention, but I think you're absolutely right to point out that once you have a system like this, more things can be bolted on, and then you might end up with a system where absolutely everything is digital, everything's on your phone. Now, for some people, like lots of people, spend a lot of my time on my phone, a lot of my life is on my phone, but for lots of people, that is not at all the case, and it's very daunting and worrying to think that you might be completely hinged on being reliant on that kind of digital process. So I think that's why we must kind of, when we look at these proposals, come at them with a very healthy dose of scepticism about where it can lead to.
Ruth, thank you. That's Ruth Ehrlich there, Head of Policy and Campaigns at Liberty. Let's speak to Craig, who's in Oxford and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Craig, you're welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Yeah, morning, Peter. Yeah, I've got 3 or 4 things on this, really.
Go for it.
Firstly, what in the last 14 months has made you think that this Labour government can successfully organise anything?
Good point.
Let alone this.
Good point.
Secondly, by the time they appoint someone to it, they'll end up getting kicked out for being ineligible or committing fraud themselves or something, which seems to be the way of the Labour Party. They can't enforce it either. They've got a fixed parliamentary term, so they've got 3.5 years that they've got to try and get this designed, implemented and pushed out. People, they need the cooperation of the people. If people refuse to adopt it, they can't force us, and we just need to tie it up for 3 years until the next election, then it'll get dropped by some sensible politicians that try and come in. It's a distraction tactic from all the other nonsense and failings that they're having currently.
So you don't think we should actually take this seriously at all, Craig?
We need to take it seriously because this is the gateway to CBDCs and social credit scoring and carbon allowances and stuff like that. This is, as I've
CBDC, that's the digital currency, isn't it?
Yeah, when they say, no, you've had too many holidays in the last couple of years,
yeah.
You can't buy a plane ticket, or you've had too many Chinese takeaways, or whatever. That's what Labour governments want to do. They want to control every aspect of your life because they think they know better than the people, when they don't. And the ultimate proof of that is they tell us to do all these things, we'll go off doing other things themselves, the exact thing they accuse the Tories of for the last 14 years.
Craig, some really, really good points there. Thank you very much indeed for them. Andy's in Liverpool. Anna's given me a ring, 0344 499 1000. Andy, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
I'd like to say I think this IDs are let down. I think they're going to give it to everyone who's all these immigrants are going to give it to them, and then closer to the election they're going to turn around and say any person who's got an ID is eligible to vote. Well, immigrants are not. I reckon that's how they're going to try and steal the next election away.
You think that's going to happen? I mean, I think it's unlikely that you could even give those people citizenship by that stage. But do you think that's the longer term plan for Labour here?
Yeah, but I think once you've got the ID, I think they'll bring it out. They'll just change it on the spot to say anyone that's got the ID will be eligible to vote, and I'll guarantee you they'll give it to millions of migrants.
Okay.
Because I think there'll be millions of migrants here by the time the next election comes up.
There's certainly quite a lot of them coming in. Andy, thank you for your thoughts there. Robert in Hertfordshire, what do you think?
Good morning.
Good morning, hi.
Consider this. When they're coming over in the boats, they've already dumped their real ID in the drink. So when they come over and have to register for this new card, it's all false information anyway. So it's all fraudulent, the new card that they're actually giving them, because they've dumped all their proper stuff in the drink.
Although they're the point.
I'm a 73-year-old pensioner.
Okay.
Just leave me alone.
The point
I don't need to go to work. I don't need to have to have proof to get a job. I'm not going to get a job. I've paid my dues.
Well, the good news for you is that there's an optional digital ID. I get the impression, Robert, you may take the option of not getting it.
Well, yeah, but it's just going to make life difficult for me. I mean, this Peter, I can just about turn my mobile phone on. I mean, you're talking about someone I've got no skills of that. You know, I'll build you a house, but I don't ask me to turn my phone on. You know?
And why should you have to? Why should you have to become a technical expert in order to use all these things in order to live? Robert, you make some really good points there, and thank you for them. That's Robert in Hertfordshire there. Let's hear a few voice notes. Firstly from David.
Morning, Peter. David from Derby. Great show. If reform do get in once Labour have put this digital ID in place, and it's cost billions and billions of pounds, say in 4 or 5 years' time when reform come in, will they have the right to scrap it? And then that's just cost the taxpayer and the UK government billions, and yeah, which will just go down the pan in 4 years' time.
I think that's a really good point, David, actually, and we know these things often don't happen as quickly as the government wants them to happen. They aren't organised as quickly as they want them to be. So yeah, I think that's a very, very fair point. And if you have a government if you have a political party, I should say, that is so ahead in the polls that says we're going to scrap this on day one, well, actually, why should you go ahead with it? Although the Conservatives went ahead with the Rwanda plan, which Labour said they were going to scrap. So listen, also the question of mandate. There's so many different issues here. This wasn't in the Labour Party manifesto either. Kelvin has been in touch. This is what Kelvin has to say.
Morning, Peter. Digital ID cards. Starmer says it's to stop illegal working in Britain, really, and stop migration. If it was to do all that, then why is it targeted at us, the normal people of the country? Why is it we've got to have them? Again, picking on the British people, as if it isn't enough with being taxed to high heaven. You know, if you're going to use it to stop migration, then surely they would be the ones to have these cards, not us. But you can't get the truth out of them, can you? Because they throw all their papers overboard when they're coming over. And then these clowns in power, like Starmer, believes every word they say. Oh, I've come from a war-torn country. If I go back there, I'll be persecuted. What a load of crap. You know, it's rubbish. So that's where they should be aimed, not at us.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Calvin. Nick has been in touch as well about Darren Jones.
A very good morning to you, Peter. It's Nick from Loughborough. To hear Darren Jones extol the virtues in his robotic style of this digital ID as somehow a utopia of convenience, I contend that it's exactly the opposite. It's leading us into a dystopian future, and this is the thin end of the wedge. What comes beyond this is truly frightening, and it's all the start of a centralised digital currency, and from then on we are in a very dark place. Peter, I truly weep for the future now, and I hope this lot are gone as quickly as possible. Have a very good day, Peter.
Nick, thank you for that. We're asking the question, is Britain still a free country? Fiona's been in touch. It will be cheaper for the taxpayer, says Fiona, and a deterrent to illegal migrants if the government just clamped down on companies employing and breaking the law. I also think this is about more, discarding British ID that exists to merge immigrants into society here, and I have a feeling to vote you will need an ID card. Alan says, just one question, will the government accept responsibility if your data and ID is hacked and stolen? I think we know the answer to that one. Bob and Chiswick says, considering digital ID, how long do you think it will be before mission creep happens and the police use face recognition along with AI to track everyone? Would they even have the capacity to do that? Paul in Australia says, how many billions of pounds will this cost? Free ID system will cost at least 50 billion at a guess. It still won't work. Teresa says, I'm happy to carry an ID card, but I don't see the need for it to be digital. I'm retired, so I will not be having it full stop. And Sam says, how does implementing IDs stop the boat? Surely that is the Prime Minister's first priority. Smash the gangs. Lots to discuss. Let us know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. More of yours and my thoughts next here on Talk.
put up this disgusting, wretched, evil, creepy, totalitarian document, because my message is very clear when it comes to digital ID. No, no, no.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots on Twitter today. Just been looking at my tweets there during the break. One person says there is no such thing as a 100% secure IT system. It doesn't exist. It never has, and it never will. Martin says, please ask Steve Reid tomorrow if Fujitsu are on the list of potential contracts for the development of this dreadful digital ID. That's a very good point. Crimson Avenger, love some of these names, say none of them seem to have the brains to understand that work in the black economy doesn't need any identity. And Bob and Surrey, Bob, haven't heard from you in a while. I hope you're well. I hope Rodney the cat's well as well. Why does the government introduce laws, digital card being the latest, where existing laws cover the issue and are not enforced? Employers already have to check the right to work. They're just saying things. They hope we think they're taking action. Bob, you're absolutely right. Just implement the existing law. That would solve these issues. Matt is in Hove and has some thoughts on digital ID.
Morning, Peter. Matt in Hove here. Just a quick note on digital ID and a little bit on Darren Jones. Now, do they actually think the UK public are total mugs? As if there's thousands and thousands of Eritrean and Somalian lads in the Calais jungle are distraught this morning that they won't be able to come over because they can't get a digital ID. They don't have any ID and they get everything for free. It's ludicrous that's going to make a difference. And also, wheeling out Darren Jones. I mean, his career, he worked in a law firm and then he's been an MP for like 15 years. What expertise has he got about an app rollout? He doesn't know anything. Don't they have anyone in this government who've got any sort of business now? So depressing.
Matt, thanks for your thoughts there. This is what another Matt, this time in Swindon, thinks. Let's go to Wiltshire and hear from Matt.
Morning, Peter. Matt here from Swindon. This digital ID, it has done exactly what it has set out to do. It was put out there to take everyone's eye off what's really going on with the Labour government. That's all you lot are talking about. I think we should stop talking about this and go back to the real matters in hand. Have a lovely day.
Thank you, Matt. And Bill has been in touch.
Hi, good morning, Peter. Bill from Angus here. Just a quick reminder. What happened when these idiots in Edinburgh gave mobile phones, to all the prisoners in Scotland during COVID? Well, the easy answer is a lot of them were hacked. A lot of them disappeared into the oblivion. So goodness knows, if they can hack from within a prison, what can anybody outside the prison do? Thanks, Pete. Great show. Bye.
Very good points there, Bill, and the two Matts as well. Thank you. Let's go to Amanda in Norwich. Amanda, thanks for your call. 0344 499 1000 is what Amanda dialed. Tell us your thoughts today.
Oh, hello, Peter.
Hi there.
I just feel that Starmer yesterday, he sounded like a man who meant business, which is something I don't often hear him. You know, no ID, no work. I'm a little bit worried when we need this ID to vote. That I'm slightly concerned that it's going to be no ID, no vote.
I think that people should have to show some form of ID to vote. I don't think it should be a digital ID, certainly, but I think people should have to prove that they're an elector to vote. Do you know?
Yeah.
Do you agree with that, or it's just the digital ID aspect you've problem with?
It's come in. I just wonder if this is the way we're going. If we decide we're not going to have that, you know, that it's going to be, well, you don't get a vote then, because we need this. That's my concern. I'm very concerned. it sort of smacks of the COVID vaccine. You know, no vaccine, and you can't travel.
And that was disgraceful. I mean, look, I've had all my jabs. I'm actually immunosuppressed. I have a very tedious illness that means I've got to have all the jabs and everything. But listen, and I've had them all, but people have a right not to. If you don't want to have jabs, that's your decision. That is your bodily autonomy, and no one should lose their job simply for not having the jabs or not having a digital ID.
Yes, but I'm just concerned it's going to sort of swing out, and we're not going to be able to vote.
Okay, well, let's hope it doesn't go that far. But Amanda, thanks so much for your thoughts today. Thanks for your call. Charlotte's also given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Charlotte's in Berkshire. You're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say, Charlotte?
Good morning. I don't trust a single word that this government says. Every single time Keir Starmer opens his mouth, he's lying. And for him to actually try and sell, and that's what he's trying to do, he's trying to convince us that the digital ID is good for us, when Tony Blair has been pushing this for decades, and every single year there's another so-called reason why they want to implement it. It's nothing to do with illegal immigrants. It is 100% to do with control and Tony Blair's agenda, and I think it's utterly disgusting, and it's an extremely dark time for this country.
What will you do, Charlotte, if someone says, perhaps your employer says you can't continue to work unless you have a digital ID? What would you do at that point, Charlotte?
I am fortunately in a position where if I am forced to do it, I'll tell my company where they can stick it. I'm not doing it. I work for a financial services company, and I heard on the grapevine a while ago that they were looking at trying to do a digital ID for us in work.
Right.
And I've already made my feelings very clear. The second there's a digital ID in work, I'm having a work phone, and I'm refusing point blank to have it on my personal phone.
Yeah.
Because I know if they put a digital ID on an iPhone, they can track me 24/7, and I'm not having my employer tracking my personal life. Nothing to do with it.
Well, I think that's very wise. Charlotte, listen, thank you for your thoughts. Just Charlotte in Berkshire there. Gerald in Bournemouth says ID cards, reminder, the post office computer system didn't work. Other large government computer systems haven't worked. So why should this be any better? And who in the government has any experience on computer systems? One more from John in Woodford, who says, Peter, this is pure thick of it deflection from a number 10 in extreme crisis before the Labour conference. It won't happen, but it's stopped everyone talking about everything else, so they have messed up and have no plans how to correct everything. John, believe me, when we talk to the government tomorrow, it's not just going to be about ID cards. There are many, many other things that I'm worried about. One of the things I'm really worried about, actually, is the fact that a guy called Pete North was arrested, and what he was arrested for was retweeting a meme. Now this meme, we're going to put it on the screen. I'm going to read it out to you. We have the F words all blurred out. We've got our people behind the scenes to do that because we obviously don't want to show them on a screen. It's on a Palestinian flag. F Palestine, F Hamas, F Islam, want to protest, F off to Muslim country and protest. Now, I don't think that's a particularly nice thing. It's not something I would retweet, but it is something that Pete North retweeted. Well, what happened? He had a visit from the cops. This is what happened.
Basically, our hate crime team reviewed it and said there are offences there we need to explore. Okay. Basically, Section 19 refers to spreading what we say like racial hatred. So you've posted something online that we believe is spreading racial hatred.
Twitter, Facebook,
what? I can't explain too much. Obviously, if you've got stuff you'd like to gather, obviously I'm more than willing to talk through what you're able to take with you.
What, you're taking me away now?
Yes, so you're under arrest, so you're going to Harrogate, unfortunately.
You're taking me to Harrogate in the middle of the night over a tweet?
I am, unfortunately.
It wasn't quite in the middle of the night, it was at 10 o'clock at night, but that's not a pleasant time to uproot everything. It's never a pleasant time to be arrested, I would imagine. I've never been arrested so far. Mark Whitford has tweeted and said that Pete North was actually arrested because someone was offended by the post of his meme. Hamas is a prescribed Islamist terrorist organisation. Will Surrey police be knocking on my door? And a number of people are retweeting it in protest at this. Now, I don't think that I would retweet that. I don't think it's a particularly nice thing. But Hamas is a prescribed terrorist organisation. And even if it wasn't, people are entitled to their views. We're in a situation where a trial collapsed because Lord Hermer managed to miss a deadline. Yes, the Attorney General of this country can't deal with a calendar. He missed a deadline in terms of the prosecution of someone from NECAP who was alleged to have glorified Hezbollah and Hamas. Death, death to the IDF is something that was chanted on the BBC by Pascal Robinson-Foster of Bob Villan. He hasn't been arrested yet. That is clear incitement. We're in a situation where a doctor who has said that she doesn't believe the Holocaust exists and happened, and has said that the country is controlled by Jews. She says that is a convenient flag, a flag of convenience, and these are things that, these are concepts. The Holocaust is a concept that Jewish people have to talk about victimhood. I mean, that is all anti-Semitic nonsense. It is not, it is deeply, deeply offensive. She's still free to practice as a doctor. So the question has to be asked, first of all, not just is Britain still a free country, but is the law being applied equally? And the answer is no. And just because someone is offended by something doesn't necessarily mean that it is a crime. We're going to get the nuts and bolts of this. Peter Blexley is our crime commentator standing by. But I am really, really concerned about the way the police didn't seem to know that Hamas was a proscribed terrorist organisation, didn't seem to be aware of that until they were told by Pete North. There are so many questions with this. Also, if the government is going to have more to do with our lives, if there's going to be a digital ID, for example, and 1,731,986 people have now signed a petition against it, well, is the information they have going to be correct? And if it isn't correct, what will we be able to say and what will we be able to do in order to actually counter that and say, hold on a second, what you've got, the information is wrong? I think we could well be into a computer says no, whatever the police say is right, whatever the authorities say is right, and you've no way back. It's kind of society, especially when you have someone arrested at 10 o'clock at night for retweeting a meme. That's not a society I want to live in. I want to live in a free society where, yes, people have the right to offend one another. I don't want to be offended, but I'm sure I offend many people. This shirt might offend people, my hair might offend people, the way I speak might offend people. That's no one has the right not to take offence, and no one has the right not to be offended. I'm offended by many things, but guess what? The world continues to turn, and I continue to get on with my life. That's what the police should have done when it came to Pete North. That's what all of us need to be able to do. And if the government, or the police force, or the authorities in general stop us from doing that, well then, that means it's not a free country. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. We'll get the expertise of Peter Blexley on this particular case next here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, Peter Blexley is standing by. Let's just remind ourselves of that clip of what the police actually said to Pete North when they arrested him for retweeting a meme. Yes, really. This is Britain 2025.
Basically, our hate crime team reviewed it and said there are offences there we need to explore.
Okay.
Basically, Section 19 refers to spreading what we say like racial hatred. So you've posted something online that we believe is spreading racial hatred.
Twitter, Facebook,
I can't explain too much. Obviously, if you've got stuff you'd like to gather, obviously I'm more than willing to talk through what you're able to take with you.
What, you're taking me away now?
Yes, so you're under arrest, so you're going to Harrogate, unfortunately.
You're taking me to Harrogate in the middle of the night over a tweet?
I am, unfortunately.
Well, Peter Blexley is our crime commentator, former Metropolitan Police detective, author, speaker, king among men. Peter, what on earth is going on here?
First of all, I'd like to say how much I concur with every word that you spoke before the break.
Thank you.
Thank goodness for you. Thank goodness for this channel. This is yet another odious example of police overreach. This is not the police's job. In fact, if these officers had any knowledge of the law, and you look at very carefully what Pete North's meme contained, he's expressing his dislike of Hamas, of Palestine, and of the faith of Islam. Now, we don't have blasphemy laws in this country yet, albeit this pernicious, vindictive socialist government is looking to impose them upon us, I fear. Therefore, there was no need to go to his house. There was no need to arrest him. And I sincerely hope that Mr. North rinses the police for a lot of money and for their actions which were clearly unlawful and unnecessary.
Peter, it's interesting as well in regard to Hamas. The police officers who were interviewing him, he says in the interview, didn't seem to know that Hamas was a proscribed organisation. I mean, surely if you just have a bit of a Google, you would find that out before you go around arresting people.
I'm afraid the standards of training and the knowledge of the law have tumbled a very, very long way from all those years ago when I joined the police, and you had to have a very thorough, in-depth knowledge of the law, even more so if you were a detective. Those days are sadly long behind us, because that kind of stuff has been regarded by the police, who are now basically a social service, regarded as unnecessary. And of course, they're paying the price. Police officers should know the law. And the team that reviewed that meme, that's the even more bizarre thing. They tasked those officers to go to Pete North's address because they felt there were offences there. There aren't. There are not offences there. And the mission creep by the British police into policing free speech is deeply, deeply worrying. It starts at the top. I'm sure that this went through a level of officers before those uniformed frontline cops were deployed. And because they're all terrified and won't make a decision, nobody grasped it, applied some common sense and said, nothing to see here, gentlemen. Go out and catch some criminals instead.
Speaking of common sense, I mean, at what point do you as a police officer simply say, you know, someone rings up, says, I'm offended by this, this is clearly horrible, dreadful, you know, possibly racist. I mean, I don't think it is racist, but, you know, if someone might think it's racist incorrectly, idea, this is something that's really offensive. I mean, I see things that are far more offensive than that on Twitter every single day. I'm not going to go around reporting them to the police, but even if I did, I would expect the policeman or woman on the other end of the phone to say, catch yourself on, sunshine, we've got better things to do.
Yes, and they would only be able to do that if they had a knowledge of the law and understood what is a crime and what isn't a crime. But clearly in this case, they blooming well didn't, which was very unfortunate for Mr. North. And I'm glad they're getting so much adverse publicity, although unfortunately we keep seeing more and more examples of this. The police have to start applying some common sense. They have to start using discretion, and they have to start knowing what the law is and acting accordingly. How many more times are they going to have to be sued before they wake up?
Do you think perhaps some of the police are waking up to this? We heard Sir Mark Rowley on the Graham Linehan case, the Father Ted creator case. He was saying the government needs to be much clearer in regard to what the law actually is. Is this just about ignorance of the law, or is it about implementing it incorrectly, do you think, Peter?
I thought Mark Rowley's words were appalling. He's the head of the Metropolitan Police, the largest police service in the country. He should get a grip. He should know the law. He should consult with the Met Police's solicitors. They need to get a grip on this. Simply washing their hands of it and passing it on to the government once again is absolving themselves of any responsibility. Get a grip, police officers. It really is not that difficult.
Great common sense there from Peter. Peter, imagine, for the sake of argument, someone wanted to sit in a theatre and hear more of your common sense. What advice would you give them if that were the case?
To go to peterblexley.com and buy their tickets for my UK-wide tour, which is coming to you in 2026.
Great stuff, Peter. As always, thank you. That's Peter Blexley there, who is our crime commentator. He's a former Metropolitan Police detective. Speaking a lot of sense about that. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Dan's in Liverpool and has some thoughts on this. Dan, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hello there, Peter. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to ask Peter Blexley this question. I would love to. If I put the same post, but I said F the far right, F the Nazis, F the Conservatives, would the police still come to my door, or would it be suddenly a double standard of there's nothing to see here?
Well, the problem is I think we know the answer to that, Dan.
And unfortunately, even yourself, as impartial as you are, and I'm not going to say you're not impartial, the two-tier system that we've got now, police trust is going to an all-time low.
Well, it is. And people say we need to be able to trust our institutions, we need to be able to trust the police, but how can you when, look, these are bobbies on the beat there, the guy who was arresting him, he wasn't sinister, he wasn't unkind, he was trying to be as reasonable as he could with a deeply, deeply unreasonable and ridiculous situation, Dan. But this goes all the way to the top. It won't have been that Bobby on the beat who was making the decision to arrest Pete North. It'll have been someone far further up the food chain, and that's what worries me, Dan.
It worries me as well, and I'm someone, when I was younger, I wanted to be a police officer. I want to, and I'm guessing yourself and every British person wants to respect the police, have love for the police. But our trust is getting so far. What's going to happen when that string eventually snaps? And I'm not saying this. When I say this, I say it for the police. No threats. It's only a thought experiment. So next time you have Peter Blexley on, maybe you can ask him this question. Listen, when trust hits so low, do the police want to turn every British person who wants to be a law-abiding citizen into the next Raoul Moat?
Yeah, well, listen, I hope they don't.
I hope they don't.
And it's a real worry because, listen, obviously there's absolutely no excuse for anything that Raoul Moat or anybody else did in that regard. And I know you're not saying that, Dan, but the point you're illustrating is a really, really good one, which is that if we can't trust authority, and if we can't ventilate our opinions on stations like this, actually, if we can't say what we think, if we can't tweet what we think, even if it's offensive to other people, well, actually...
Could I ask one more question, please?
Go ahead, Dan.
So, with the blasphemy law that someone has just been arrested for now, how long... I'm a very rare state. I'm half Muslim, I'm half Roman Catholic. Muslim from my dad's side, Catholic from my mother's side.
Okay.
How long is it going to be before... if it keeps going like that, someone being gay or someone being of a different minority, when that becomes an Islamophobic crime, if it keeps going like this?
Well, it's a really, really interesting question, Dan. It's something we need to ask and we need to keep an eye on and think about a lot. And just someone being a certain way, just someone, something that is being gay, for example, is not your choice. I strongly believe it's something you're born with. Others may disagree, but if that's offensive to someone, well, and then you say, well, actually, I disagree with you because you disagree with me. Is that Islamophobic? Is that against Christianity? Is that whatever in regard to other religions? Dan raises some really, really good points there, and I think there's a lot to debate. Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Loads to discuss between now and 12:30. We'll get the view from America on free speech, on digital ID as well, and we'll take a load of your calls, text, voice notes. Keep them coming in. 0344 499 1000.
These digital IDs are illiberal, authoritarian, un-British, Orwellian and wrong. Which is why I have commissioned a pair of Talk's finest scissors to cut up this disgusting, wretched, evil, creepy, totalitarian document, because my message is very clear when it comes to digital ID. No, no, no.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Amit in Loughborough says digital ID, dumb idiocracy defined. George in Corby says, hi Peter, I don't know why everyone's getting concerned about digital ID. Labour will not be able to introduce it because they will not be in government beyond 2027. Dave says maybe the police force should attend Peter's events next year as they may learn more about the law than they are taught during the normal process. Talking about Peter Blexley there. Another person on Twitter actually says, Peter Blexley, excellent interview with him as always. I absolutely don't stand with everything you say at all, Peter, but we can always agree to disagree. No harm done at all. Being arrested for a tweet, totalitarian UK incoming. Roger says it's complete nonsense. He doesn't use the word nonsense, but I'm keeping it Ofcom friendly. Every contract I do, I have to prove my right to work. On the last contract, I had to hold up my passport on a Teams call and provide copies of my birth certificate and passport. What difference would an ID card make? Mike says, I'm watching on Catch Up. Peter, well done covering the story of Pete North. If you're not on Twitter, you probably won't know men are being arrested just for retweeting a meme. Well done for covering the story. I bet you won't see it on the BBC. I think I've retweeted this meme in anger at the 7th of October in the past, as of thousands and thousands of others. So why was Pete North targeted? I think the answer, Mike, is that someone made a complaint about him, and that's an easy thing to do, and that's something that people have very, very little actual accountability for doing, because you can do so anonymously. Natalia says, come to think of it, Peter, your hair may have been slightly offensive yesterday on Drive, but it's perfect today. Great show. And Les says, I'm offended by your hair, Cardi P. Will you lend me some? And Mark in Lincolnshire says, Mr. Cardwell, for security reasons, please verify yourself. Scan your ID card, please. How do we know it's you presenting the show? Have a great show, says Mark. Well, I can confirm it is me. I've got my proof of ID here, the Diet Coke beside me, and I'm off to Pizza Express after this, so you know it's definitely me. Sarah says voter ID is already required. Voter ID can be provided by local authorities. If the approved list of ID is not held, no ID, no vote, says Sarah in West Sussex. And let's go to Janie now in Sussex. Janie, you're very welcome to the programme. I think it's the first time we've spoken, actually. What would you like to say?
Yes, it is the first time. Thank you, Peter, for taking my call. It was simply that I work in lettings, so we're constantly checking IDs. If anybody comes from abroad, so they haven't got a British or Northern Irish passport, and they need a government share code. So they can't proceed with renting a property, and I think it's the same thing probably if you're an employer, that you would have to have that from somebody coming abroad. So that's an online process. So they apply online on the government website, and then they're issued with a government share code, which they can upload to their ID checks, etc., going forward. Mm-hmm. So if that share code already exists, then if it's a legitimate person, i.e. they're allowed to be here, then you've already got a government share code, so you don't need a check on them. And if
this is the point, Jenny, and I do wonder, especially when it comes to work. I mean, we had that person tweeting in saying, you know, he does contract work and he had to show his passport, birth certificate, things like that. I've just taken on a bit of lecturing actually at a university, believe it or not, and they, you know, I had to show my passport for that to show that I'm legit. I'm not sure I am legit, but anyway. But Jenny, I mean, it's very straightforward, isn't it? All these things exist already, so this is just another thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're all doing IDVT checks online. All of us now. So, but if I wasn't in a company and I was just a landlord, I could still get verify the government share code that someone provided me with.
Yeah.
You just log on, you just go onto the government website and put the share code in, it would tell you.
Listen, that's a really, really good point. How long have you worked in lettings, Jenny?
A long time. Too long to say.
Too long to say. What are you up to the rest of the day, Jenny?
I'm going to be doing some work. I'm going to be letting some properties.
You're going to be letting some properties. You're not going to be taking your love to town, no?
Not today.
Never heard that one before, I'm sure. I'm sure that's the first time you've ever heard that. I thank you very much indeed. That's Jenny in Sussex. Her first call to me. Hopefully not the last one. I'm sure she's many, many other interesting things to say. Do get in touch again, Jenny. Thank you for that. Val is in Devon and has some thoughts on digital ID. Val, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Oh, good morning, Peter.
Hi there.
Several little points just regarding the ID cards. It was very strange to be announced only a day after there was a poll showing that 80% of pensioners would vote for reform, because they're the ones most likely not to have digital ID. So I think that there's a little bit more to it than that, because it also came up that you would need digital ID to access welfare, pensions, etc. So it's going to be very difficult for pensioners. And if we had it on our phone, should we have a phone, the phone thefts are really high. How does that stop our ID being stolen by
It's a really good point, Val, and if they get into your phone, the thing is they don't just want the phone to sell the phone, they want all the information and bank details and everything else that's in your phone. If they get in, can they just impersonate you? And isn't this going to be copied and used fraudulently anyway?
Well, I think so. And also, I mean, I lived in Spain for 12 years and we had ID cards over there, but they were cards. They weren't digital. We had to produce fingerprints, and we had a number that was used for everything, like our national insurance number, but it was used as your identification number. And so if you bought a house or anything, it was always the same number. It was your tax code. It was everything.
Yes.
So we've all got national insurance numbers. Anybody over 16 has got a national insurance number.
Well, why do you need these extra things? Why do you need this extra layer? It's a question I haven't got an answer to.
No, I mean, I wouldn't mind if they wanted to, say, add a photograph or a fingerprint onto your national insurance card to prove that it is you, because that might even help for ID for older people, because, a lot of the time they haven't got passports and they've got no driving licence.
Very good points, Val.
The digital side.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much,
Well,
Peter.
thank you, Val. Really good points there. Appreciate you giving us a ring from Devon there. That was Val. Let's hear a voice note now. Andy has been in touch on what Starmer was saying. This is what Andy thinks.
Morning, Pete. It's Andy from Birmingham. Hope you're well, mate. Great show. On these ID cards, like Starmer said yesterday morning, that it was just mainly to cut out illegal immigration, getting work and whatever in the black market. Well, why don't you aim it at them then, and not like us, like British citizens that have got passports and driving licence? Why don't, if they come over, right, and if for some reason they do get a status here, issue them with a card so they can go and work. And say to the employers, like, your Deliveroos and all that. I'm not singling out Deliveroo, but there's a lot of them are like cutting through any type to take these people on. If you get caught with one of these, you get 50 grand fine and whatever. Why should we have to pay and be monitored? And I'm just, I'm an English citizen. I've got everything anyway. So it just makes you think then it's for something else, which obviously it's going to be. But hopefully time will run out for them and the cost will be too much, and maybe it is a dead cat anyway. So great programme, mate. Ta-da.
Thanks, Annie, much appreciated. This is what Sally says.
Hi, Peter. Great programme as usual. I have an NI number, I have an NHS number, I have a passport, I have a bank account, I have a driving licence. Why on earth do I need an ID card? I'm a British citizen. No way, Starmer. No way.
And finally, before the news, from Natalie.
Hi, Peter. It's Natalie from Cannock. Just on digital ID, what next? Are they going to start chipping us like dogs?
Let's hope not. Jeff in Aberdeen says ID scares the hell out of me. Your employer knowing stuff about me is wrong. Imagine them being able to access your health record. Jeff, it's a very good point. We'll get a view from across the Atlantic next. Steve Gill is going to join us and let us know what he thinks about all of this and the American political developments. Stay with us here on Talk. Loads to discuss between now and 12:30.
Your Majesty, Melania and I are deeply grateful to you and Queen Camilla for your extraordinary graciousness. And to William and Kate, thank you so much. It's been so great being with you today. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's a singular privilege to be the first American president welcomed here. The phrase special relationship, seen from American eyes, the word special does not begin to do it justice. We're joined by history and fate, by love and language. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be with you.
Security remains the cornerstone of this special relationship. We have the deepest, most advanced defense relationship in the world.
As I said last night, the bond between our countries is like no other anywhere in the world. The United States and the United Kingdom have done more good on this planet than any two nations in human history.
We are working together to end the humanitarian catastrophe in the Middle East.
The one that I thought would be easiest would be because of my relationship with President Putin, but he's let me down.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Loads of people want to talk about digital ID. We're going to get the American view in a second, and then we're going to take calls right to the end of the programme for all of this and hear your voice notes as well, because there's so many people who want to talk about this digital ID programme. If you have ideas, if you've got questions for the government's on tomorrow. Steve Reid, the Housing Secretary, doesn't always happen in this station. He is going to be on the show, and I will put at least some of your questions to him. We've got a list already, but if you've more that you want to get in, send them to me. And get your voice on the air between now and 12:30 as well, but give me a ring. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp text message. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute please, or you can send me or you can pick up the phone and give me a ring. 0344 499 1000. Loads to discuss in the next half an hour, and indeed tomorrow between 10 and 1 we've got Reform, we've got the Conservatives, we've got the government, Labour, and we've got the Liberal Democrats all on the show tomorrow. Loads to discuss both today and tomorrow here on Talk. Well, let's go to America and talk to Steve Gill, who's a former White House advisor. Steve, really interesting to hear your view on this digital ID plan. What's the status of things in America in regard to this? Clearly civil liberties are very important there. And what do you think, looking across the Atlantic, when you see Starmer saying that he wants to put digital IDs into everybody's phones, and you can't work in this country, he says, unless you have a digital ID? What do you think?
Yeah, here in the States, there is some voluntary use of the digital ID process. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. We do not have any kind of a required process here. Some states increasingly allow it. The Transportation Safety Administration, when you're boarding planes, will allow you to use a digital ID on your phone as opposed to some sort of a hard copy form that you might have in your wallet or attached to your plane ticket. So it's a voluntary piece here, and I think the questions here are: do you continue the voluntary process? And if somebody voluntarily gives up their identity information, are they voluntarily giving up some of their freedom, some of their privacy, versus what you're seeing in Britain with an identity requirement? But interestingly, from what I understand, Peter, it is only required of British citizens. So if you're illegally in Britain, which is one of the real problems that people there are facing, they don't have any kind of a digital ID requirement. So it only applies to those who are legally in Britain, not to those who are illegally in Britain.
And I mean, the government will say it's a way of excluding people who are here illegally and then identifying them. But of course, in regard to immigration, that plan hasn't been needed, and Trump has been very successful in regard to what he has done on illegal immigration.
Yeah, it's not been a matter of do they have ID. It's are the employers in many cases requiring some of the fundamental identification processes that have been on the books, have been the law, but they haven't been following. Or if you have a social security number in the United States, it may be the same social security number being shared by 50, 70 people that are really tied to some 78-year-old woman in Spokane, Washington, not some 24-year-old worker in Arizona.
Yeah, well, it's a very, very good point. Just talking about Donald Trump, he was at the Ryder Cup yesterday. A bit of a hullabaloo there. Tell us about that.
Well, he was there with his granddaughter, Kai, who is an amazing golfer in her own right. She's playing college golf. And, the crowd, welcomed him, with great fanfare and hullabaloo. And I think the recognition that he continues to get when he goes to events like that, whether it's NASCAR race car events or whether he goes to other sporting events, shows that his poll numbers are not just great when you do the polling process, but when you go out and among the people in the public, he's getting embraced warmly there as well.
It's funny, he made a slightly confusing remark as well when he said it looks as if there is a deal to end the war in Gaza. There doesn't seem to be much substance to that. That came on a day, of course, where Benjamin Netanyahu started speaking at the United Nations in New York, and many people walked out as well. Where are we with this from Trump's perspective, do you think?
Peter, I'm confused by this administration regularly, and I'm a big Trump supporter, but at the same time, it often appears that he says whatever was spoken into his ear by the last person he spoke to, and whether it's Gaza, whether it's Ukraine, Russia conflict, the conflicting, inconsistent statements that come from the administration are confusing not only here in the States, but also I think globally. And there does seem to be a disconnect sometimes between what his advisors think and say to him and what then comes out of his mouth. And I think that, we prefer stability, we prefer predictability in our leaders. And while I think Trump likes to play the unpredictable card because it keeps his adversaries on edge and confused, it also confuses his allies and his friends as well.
Well, it's very true. He's meeting Netanyahu on Monday at the White House. There'll be a lot at stake in that meeting, certainly, Steve.
Yeah, and I think that what we've seen for so long is that, in my view, you have different approaches to dealing with Hamas. And I think President Trump has been very clear that you cannot award and reward Hamas with the atrocities that they have committed by recognizing them politically or otherwise. And yet at the same time, you see President Trump and the administration, the United Nations, welcoming folks that were previously on the terrorist bounty list and treating them just because they trimmed their beard and put on a suit as some sort of a new world leader. And I think that again, the inconsistency of condemning Hamas properly and at the same time welcoming, terrorist warlords into the United Nations and into Washington, D.C. is not the appropriate way to deal with terrorists past or present.
Steve, thank you as always. That's Steve Gill there, who is a former White House advisor. Appreciate you joining us. Phil's been in touch, says, don't forget the digital ID talk is taking the focus away from Morgan McSweeney. Let's keep the pressure on him. Great show as always, Peter. Phil, don't you worry. I will be asking Steve Reid about that tomorrow. Gary in Kingston says, well, I'll come to that in a second, actually. Jamie in Leeds says, good morning, Peter. I expect the strategy will be to have the digital ID ruled out before the next election, and you won't be able to vote without the digital ID. Sean in Bicester says the first people who will rush to get the digital ID will be the same people who wore masks on their own in their cars. The worst example, I promise you, I had a friend who was walking up a mountain, and there was a man by himself walking up a mountain wearing a mask. It was just outrageous and stupid. Gary in Kingston says, Peter, it's Ruby, don't take your love to town, not Janie. Well, I think you'll find Mr. Bon Jovi would disagree with you, because circa 1998, actually more like 1997, he released a version, Janie, don't take your love to town. So, Gary, we will disagree without being disagreeable on that one. But who sang the original Ruby one? I'm looking at Tech Up Dave here. He's supposed to know the answer to these questions. He's shaking his head. Whatever happens, love should not be taken to town. I think we can all agree that love should stay outside of the town limits. Lots more to discuss on digital ID, arguably a slightly more serious matter. We'll do that in just a few minutes here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
On the most important issue of the day, who took their love to town and when? Kenny Rogers in 1969 sang Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town. In 1997, John Bon Jovi sang Janie, Don't Take Your Love to Town. So, I mean, what if one of Janie or indeed Ruby wanted to take their love to, I don't know, Hamlet? I think we should be told. Stephen Millings in Belfast says, on the ID app, I've dropped my passport before. I bent down and picked it up. It didn't break. In the 10 years it's valid, it's never been needed to be charged or an interim update. An app is so ridiculous you've got to wonder at the basic intelligence of this government. It is the #1 thing you want to talk about. We're now on day 3, and believe me, the opinions keep on coming. One of them is going to come from Lisa in Newbury in just a second, but let me just read this out from Eugene in Dubai. It says, in Dubai, you can't do anything without digital ID, rent a car, buy property, even see a doctor. Only food shopping works without it. Had lunch with a friend of mine from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, keeping intelligent company there, now working on Bitcoin and AI integration. Banks and governments worldwide are moving to full digital finance. Cash will vanish, every transaction will be logged, and AI will auto-tax everything. Once tied to your ID, you're completely controlled. The table went silent after that. Goodness me. Right, Lisa in Newbury, you're very welcome to the programme. Thank you so much for giving me a ring on 0344 499 1000. What would you like to say, Lisa?
Hi, Peter. Thanks for taking me on. I just wanted to say that I used to be a software database developer for law firms and working on various cases, some with, thousands and thousands of pages of documents to input. So my view is that it's going to take at least 10 years or so for this thing to go live, and hopefully by then we'll have another government such as Reform in office, and it'll just won't even be an issue by that time.
Do you think this is just a distraction technique, Lisa, because they don't want us to talk about the problems with Morgan McSweeney? They don't want us to talk about the fact that Keir Starmer is under huge pressure. Do you think they just say, right, we need a policy, we need to put it out soon, we need to put it out loudly and clearly, and lots of people are going to get upset about it, and they won't talk about the things we don't want them to talk about?
Oh, that's a very good point. I hadn't looked at it that way. But yes, I think so. I mean, I think there are huge issues that they just can't resolve. I mean, the immigration issue alone is just a huge magnitude. And if you look at my country, Trump was able to get that under wraps as soon as he took office. And why that can't be done here is just, I don't understand it.
Really good points, Lisa. Thank you for that. David's been in touch on WhatsApp text messages saying they can't send a police officer to you if your home is burgled, but they can if you use hearty words. This is the person who was arrested for retweeting a meme. Yes, really. Jim says, I texted your excellent show many months ago saying that I fear phoning in because someone may take offence. Our current Prime Minister is using the concept of divide and rule to the full extent. I have never in my 80 plus years known our culture to be so divided. He said before the election he would make more people dependent on the state. And now this ID escapade is one more step in that direction in regard to control. We're not a nation of racists, but this use of illegal immigration by our government is taking us further into a dangerous situation. That is Jim in Lancashire. Thank you to that. And Sarah says this country is now enforcing views that are unrealistic on the whole population. You can't force everyone to like every section of society. That is an impossible expectation. We are not robots. We're all different and have our own views on things. So when that view dares come out of your mouth or on your social media, you're going to be arrested. What sort of society is this? Everyone is offended if you don't fall into line. Max is on the line from Manchester, 0344 499 1000. Max, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Yes, hi, I'm new to this. I'm addicted to your station now. I want to know, with the digital ID, if I'm assuming it's the police stop people and ask them for it, so an immigrant doesn't have one, what will happen to them? Will they be deported or given a phone and a home?
This is my question, Max. And if they turn up to the hospital, for example, with blood flowing out of their arm, and they say, can I have some medical treatment? And they say, well, if you don't have a digital ID, we can't treat you. What happens then? I mean, if they turn up to, let's say, an illegal car wash and say you don't have digital IDs, are those people taken away and deported? Is that something we can guarantee? We haven't got answers to those questions yet, Max, have we?
No, in fact, if we can't guarantee that's going to happen, then it's completely pointless.
And it's not happening with all the things that are there already anyway.
Well, they can't stop them when they come in, so I don't think they're going to be deporting them when they're already here.
Max, is this your first call?
Yes.
Great call. Ring me anytime. Thank you, Max. That's Max in Manchester there. Let's hear a voice note from Stevie now.
Hi, Peter. It's Stevie here from West Lothian. Do you not find it strange that any time any Conservative Prime Minister came out with some sort of a policy, Lindsay Hoyle was down on them like a ton of bricks? Whereas Keir Starmer comes out policy after policy and all you get from Lindsay Hoyle is tumbleweed. Keep up the good work, mate. Cheers.
Stevie, thank you. It's a very fair point. Now, Lindsay Hoyle has been critical of the government for announcing things not to Parliament, first of all, of Labour, but not as much, I think, of the as he was of the Conservatives. So I think it's a very fair point. Rob in Cambridgeshire.
Morning, Peter. Rob in Cambridge.
if this is just about the illegals, how about just tag them all on entry at Dover? Just put them all nice little bracelet on their ankle, and job done. Cheers.
Another Rob, this time in Starbridge.
Hello, Peter. It's Rob in Starbridge here, mate. Peter, regarding the Stasi card, what the Labour Party want to bring in. How's it going to work for self-employed people like myself? Right, because I ain't going to take it. There's no chance in a cat's hell that I'm going to take it, right. So are they going to stop me from working? I'm a self-employed electrician, mate. People are always going to need electricians. How are they going to stop me from working? Just explain that to me. I'll just go off the books. See you later. Starmer, you're just an idiot.
Really, really good points there. And I mean, we need these people in our society. We need the electricians. We need all sorts of people. If they refuse to show their digital ID, what are we going to do about it? Let's hear a final voice note for the programme, this time from Ian.
Hi Peter, it's Ian from East Grinstead. I live down in West Sussex. There are vast swathes of areas down here where you can't even get a mobile signal. So how does that work? You know, say if I'm stopped and they want to see my digital ID, or I go to the shops and say they're using it now to check your purchasing habits, but I can't get an internet signal. So what's that all about? The whole thing is a completely, well, we know what it is. It's a smokescreen to cover up their failings. That's all it is, full stop.
Ian, thank you for that. 1,760,076 people have now signed the petition against this. It's on the parliamentary website. We're asking the question, is Britain still a free country? We've got 4 minutes of the show left. Caroline is in London. Caroline, what do you think?
Hi, Peter. Well,
Hi there.
It's clearly a smokescreen to get away from McSweeney and all the other failings. What would they talk about at their Labour conference? Tony Blair is right up there. I mean, this is just clear as day. There's nothing to do with immigration because they're letting the people in. 2015, George Soros wrote, and it's all over the internet, it's not even hard to find, about the plan for Europe. This has all been a plan, and this is all about control. And it's not going to happen. Number one, they can't do anything they do, the Labour Party, or even the government, just falls apart, but over my dead body. And the fact that all these people today, it's brilliant listening to talk, amazing points, but, you know, everything they do, their computer systems, the NHS failed, you know, the post office scandal, whatever they touch, Peter, it's just a joke. So
okay.
I don't think we should get stressed about it because they can't do it. People won't do it.
Caroline, thanks for your points. I really appreciate that. Let's squeeze in Mark in Glasgow, final call of the programme. Mark, you've got about 1 minute. What would you like to say?
Morning, Peter.
Hi.
Essentially, your last few speakers are right. This is a ridiculous plan put out to cause maximum uproar and take the talk about the McSweeney scandal off the airwaves, and it is succeeding. But in truth, also, if it were to go through, you're going to have a situation where all the illegal immigrants, as they already are in Scotland, if they haven't been refused, are able to vote, and they'll be given digital ID so they can turn up at voting stations and vote, which is extremely dangerous in terms of what's going on and what could happen.
Mark, thanks for your points. I really appreciate that. That's Mark in Glasgow. Sorry to the callers who couldn't get in. We just ran out of time. But tomorrow we are going to be talking about ID, digital ID. We're going to be talking about it with you and also the four main parties. Reform UK. We're going to be talking to the Shadow Deputy Prime Minister James Cleverly. He's going to be on the show. The Housing Secretary Steve Reid for Labour is going to be on the show just on the eve of their conference. That is happening in Liverpool. We'll also talk to the Liberal Democrats, and Christine Jardine is going to be with us as well. So whatever points you want me to put to all of those politicians, let me know. You know my Twitter address is at Peter Cardwell. You can send them to me anytime between now and tomorrow. We've got those guests lined up. I want to thank the top team behind the glass for sterling work on the show today. Chris Jacobs has been the producer, Dave Rhodes the technical operator, Deborah Brown the assistant producer, Davis Fang and Luke Vincent have been the visual producers. Parrick Birmingham, back from his trip to Australia, thank goodness, is the video editor, and Dean Spencer has been the weekend editor. Let me read out a couple more messages just before we go. Gary says, I'm absolutely against digital ID. Out of interest, I just Googled myself. I was amazed and a bit concerned about the information that's freely available. Ask your viewers to Google themselves, and most will be amazed by the information that is already accessible. Be very careful all. Mac in Glasgow says, about digital ID cards, we already can prove our ID with our driving licence, passports, national insurance number, birth certificates. It's pointless to go to more expense and hassle. We should make digital ID conditional for all immigrants, legal and illegal, coming into this country. What do you think? Great show as always, says Mac in Glasgow. I think that's a perfectly reasonable idea. Richie in Scunthorpe, if Starmer wanted to make a positive statement, he put a stop to this pathetic policing of social media and snowflakes being offended and make the police direct resources to catching real criminals. And a final one on digital ID comes from Nick. This is just a way of spying on us, he says. Thank you so much for all your messages. I will see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock with a bumper Sunday show awaiting you. See you then.
Scored.
Queen Camilla.